Right, so as always, we're talking about the Seignelay diet. Dr. Jean Seignelay, French professor of medicine. This is how to pronounce it in English. So Jean Seignelay, and Frenchmen will recognize that. Just think you've got a terrible accent. I say that in all the videos. Yeah, he put into remission 91 chronic diseases. Yeah, so my videos are all about the sort of tangentially, good word, yeah, tangentially about the Seignelay diet. This is my version of the Seignelay diet on steroids. So Seignelay did say, you know, and you'll see a video, go to my playlist and you'll see my video about what exactly is the Seignelay diet, okay, and I'll go into detail about what it is exactly. But one of the things, it hasn't been translated into English, of course, you know, a big doorstep of a book hasn't been translated into English. And I speak fluent French, I'm pretty well bilingual in French. Yeah, one of the things he said to take was les ferments. And I don't know what he means by that. Does he mean, you know, les ferments is usually sauerkraut, yeah, so fermented vegetables. But it could also mean probiotics. So he doesn't say much, you know, I don't think he says anything about sauerkraut. But he does specify French brand of probiotic, which, you know, if you want to take, you can take a probiotic. Just get some probiotic, you know, and take it. Yeah, a good thing to take with the diet. But you know, we'll take sauerkraut. You know, probably much better than any little probiotics in capsules. So yeah, hundreds of articles on PubMed about sauerkraut. PubMed is a medical database which you can access online. Just Google PubMed, you'll get to it. There's every medical article going back to the beginning of the 20th century is on there, yeah, so very, very useful. And yeah, so hundreds of articles, and that's where I've got all this stuff, yeah. And this is a separate thing. I did a lot of research for this, not the process of sauerkraut, and it's very interesting. How to make really good sauerkraut, yeah, what temperature, how much salt to use, blah, blah, blah. I've got a gripe about some of the articles on PubMed. Some of them, you know, for example, one article on possible adverse effects of sauerkraut talks about, you know, which I looked up for tyramine. Lots of tyramine in sauerkraut. We'll get onto that in a minute. But talked about how Hippocrates prescribed sauerkraut, how the Romans prescribed sauerkraut, Pliny. I don't think that's true. You know, they might have talked about cabbage. I've never heard about, you know, you know, the Romans. I've heard the Romans used cabbage for wounds, but I've looked through Pliny myself. I've got a translation of Pliny, terrible translation. You know, I think Latin is so far removed from modern language, it's very hard to translate. But anyway, I couldn't find anything about cabbage in there, let alone sauerkraut. That was a long time ago. I looked at that about 4 years ago. I looked through Pliny for cabbage. But anyway, yeah, I don't think it's true. Sauerkraut came from China via Genghis Khan, yeah? And one of my pet theories is that that's why the Poles survived the Black Plague. Yeah, the Black Plague killed 1 in 2 of Europe's inhabitants, yeah? And sauerkraut was brought to Europe through the Golden Horde, and they invaded. Genghis Khan used, and the Golden Horde, which were his successors, used sauerkraut as their traveling ration. Yeah, when they swept across Europe, raping and pillaging. You know, that's what gave the things he got from the Chinese when he invaded China. He adopted a lot. Genghis was a clever man, not a very nice man, but a very clever man, very charismatic. Yeah, he adopted lots of good Chinese things. One of the things he adopted was sauerkraut, and he brought, you know, that's how it was brought to Europe, you know, with the Golden Horde. And they got to the gates of Vienna, I think, and then they were repulsed. But anyway, they invaded Poland. You know, the Tatars invaded, which was the Golden Horde, invaded Poland 100 years before the Black Plague. So my theory is that the Poles were all eating sauerkraut when the Black Plague hit. So you will see, we'll get on to this in a minute, but sauerkraut has cabbage. The sulfur compounds in cabbage have fantastic antibacterial effects, and particularly in sauerkraut, there's one compound that is 10 to 100 times more effective at killing listeria than it is in cabbage, because it's more effective at low pH. You know, the sort of the acidic, the level of acidity in sauerkraut. So. Yeah, so was it killing the plague bacillus? I wonder, you know, maybe it was the sulfur compounds. Also, in the plague hit when the Europeans were having terrible crop failures. Yeah, they were all starving, and they had no means of preserving vegetables through the winter, in spite of what is cobblers you read on PubMed about, you know, the Romans. Nobody knew about making sauerkraut in medieval times. I'm pretty sure that's true until it arrived with the Tatars in Poland. And anyway, so the Poles were getting this marvelous vitamin C, yeah, in cabbage, all through the winter. So you know they had this cabbage is full of vitamins, full of minerals, and yeah, so getting vitamin C. So they would have. The rest of Europe, they would all have been they would all have had scurvy or preclinical scurvy when the plague hit, and that, you know, I'm sure that's what wiped them out, you know, because they had no vitamin C, and the Poles would have had plenty of vitamin C. So that's my theory. I've got nothing, no real evidence to back that up, but that's my pet theory, and. You'll hear me chuntering on about that in other videos. I love that theory. Anyway, so let's get on with this. So today we're going to talk about sauerkraut, and I'm going to talk about the medicinal qualities of sauerkraut, because it does have marvelous medicinal qualities. It can cure everything practically. Yeah, there's two good French books about cabbage, in particular, not particularly sauerkraut, but about cabbage. One was written in 1955 by Camille Droz, who was a Swiss-French herbalist, and he was referring back to a book written by a French doctor about 1880. I've got both of them, but I couldn't put my hands on them today. I've got so many books. Anyway, this French doctor in the 19th century describes all the fantastic cures he effected with just with cabbage, yeah, mainly by applying it as a cataplasm. And in particular, one thing that stood out for me was that he healed gangrene in a lady's finger just by putting wrapping it with cabbage leaf. Okay, so cabbage leaf, and any Polish people will tell you this. All the Poles know this. If you've got osteoarthritis, you put a cabbage leaf cataplasm on the knee or wherever, or on your affected joint, and you get great relief. Yeah. So, and there's a study in there was a study in 1949, and you can see we'll post up all these studies so you can see. A doctor in the US used cabbage juice for patients with peptic ulcer. Okay, and he healed the peptic ulcer in 10 days with cabbage juice. Now, I looked on the NHS website, and it says, you know, if you've got peptic ulcer, it'll take 1 to 2 months with proton pump inhibitors or antibiotics, yeah, to put it into remission. This guy did it in 10 days with cabbage juice. Why is the NHS prescribing proton pump inhibitors and antibiotics, which have side effects? Cabbage juice has no side effects. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, the American what is it? The American Dietetic Association, they call cabbage or brassicas. Cabbage is part of a family of vegetables called brassicas. So basically that's broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, etc. All brassicas. So cabbage is a brassica. Yes, they say it's a functional food, and the high glucosinolate content protects against cancer. So we've seen that, cabbage, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Adverse effects. Well, cabbage contains a thing called goitrogen, which is also glucosinolate, yeah? And that can block iodine uptake by your thyroid. And by the way, we are all iodine deficient. I highly recommend to take Lugol's iodine in water, yeah? 4 or 5 drops. 5 is probably the maximum. I take 5 drops in water every day. I had a goiter probably caused by, well, by lots of things. We'll do that another day. We'll do a video on that maybe another day. But yeah, I've shrunk my goiter. It took me years to get rid of it. But mainly when I started supplementing with iodine, with Lugol's iodine, I finally got rid of it, yeah. So, yeah, so goitrogen blocks the uptake of iodine by the thyroid, and it can, like I said, it can produce a goiter, which is a swelling just here on your neck, nasty swelling. Looks very ugly. Now, in cabbage, yeah, so there's lots of cabbage goitrogen in all brassicas, but in sauerkraut, it's reduced right down. There's only about 1/10 of the goitrogen in sauerkraut that there is in cabbage. Okay, so we don't have to worry about, you know, taking sauerkraut every day, yeah, especially if we're taking Lugol's. Yeah. So tyramine, as I mentioned earlier, is produced by fermentation, and there's a lot of it in sauerkraut. Okay, which would it actually regulates blood pressure. Tyramine, yeah. So it's a beneficial effect, but if you've got if you're taking monoamine oxidase inhibitors, it can produce a nasty effect. It could produce a spike in blood pressure, which could be dangerous. Yeah, might even kill you. Yeah. So if you be careful if you're taking this medication. Yeah, avoid sauerkraut, or yeah, I would say avoid it completely. What else? Yeah, it can potentially trigger migraine in some people, but it's not clear cut. Some people have a definite. It's not all migraine sufferers. It's just a few, a small subsection of migraine sufferers. So if you haven't now, Senulé had fantastic results with migraine. we'll flash those up. Also with tension, headache. So if you've got either of those, tension, headache or migraine, just be very careful and take a small dose of sauerkraut and see how you get on. Yeah, so see if you get any adverse reaction. If so, if you do, see if you get a migraine, yeah, or headache, and if you do, stop taking it. But I think it should be okay. Yeah, so just monitor yourself, and just make sure it's not giving you migraine. Oh yes, this is very counterintuitive with sauerkraut, and this will surprise a lot of health nuts. It seems that it's not, that the lactic acid bacteria aren't doing as much as we thought, because there was a study, and we'll flash it up, a study with patients with irritable bowel syndrome, and they gave half the patients pasteurized sauerkraut and half the patients unpasteurized sauerkraut, and both groups had great improvements in their symptoms. They've got a special questionnaire, a standard questionnaire that's always used for these things for irritable bowel syndrome, and they had both groups had great improvement, no difference. And both groups in their poop, lots of very good, very healthy bacteria in the poop, but only the group which were taking the unpasteurized sauerkraut had lactic acid bacteria in their poop. Okay, so take from that what you will, but it looks, I think, now I haven't put, there's a couple of things I haven't put on here. One of the things is that, very lax of me. There was a study, where they tested the effects of the antibacterial effects of sauerkraut, of cabbage, of cabbage. And here we go, and we'll flash it up. Antimicrobial activity of sulfur compounds derived from cabbage. Selected sulfur compounds found in cabbage and its fermentation product sauerkraut were tested for minimum inhibitory concentrations, MIC, against growth of 15 species of bacteria and 4 species of yeasts. Well, they had, great antimicrobial activity, and this was from the sulfur compounds, all had great antimicrobial activity. But get this, one of these, which is a bit of a mouthful, which I won't read out, one of the compounds, was 10 to 100 times more inhibitory against Listeria monocytogenes at pH values of 5, 6, and 7, which is sort of slightly acid. That's about, the pH you get in sauerkraut. So between 10 and 100 times more inhibitory against Listeria. So, what other bacteria is it killing so effectively? It's not really spelled out here. This is the abstract, actually. I don't think, I couldn't read on PubMed. These are all studies from PubMed, which is a medical database of articles, medical articles. Dates right the way back to beginning of the 20th century. So any medical article, in the last 120 years, you can search for it. Yeah, so very, very useful. Sometimes you get the free article. Sometimes it's just the abstract. Yeah, which is like the headline of the article, and sometimes I think it's about 50% of the time you just get the abstract, and 50% of the time you can get the free article. You know, you can read it online. So some of these things I can just find the abstract. You know, I can't. To get the article, it's possible to get the article, but you know, it's a lot of hassle. I would have to go to a university library, get a reader's card, then they can get the article for me. You know, it might take a month, so a bit of a hassle. You know, if it's a really, really important article, you know, it's worth getting. It's worth doing that, but otherwise. So yeah, what else? What else have I forgotten? Okay. Oh yeah, vitamin C. Yeah. Sauerkraut cabbage is very high in vitamin C. Okay, it's got yeah, lots of vitamins and minerals in cabbage. Yeah, just remembered another thing I was going to talk about. Come to that in a minute. But yeah, cabbage is high in vitamin C. But in sauerkraut, it reduces by about 50%. You've still got the vitamin C, but it reduces by about 50%. But the thing is, the ascorbic acid, you know, the vitamin C, is tied up, you know, in compounds in the cabbage, what they call ascorbigen. And yes, so the fermentation process breaks down the ascorbigen and releases the ascorbic acid, vitamin C. So although you're getting 50% less vitamin C in the sauerkraut than you are in the cabbage, it's more bioavailable. Another interesting thing about ascorbigen, they did a study where they gave it to patients with fibromyalgia, and yeah, I think it was concentrated. Let me get the study here. I think it was an extract. You know, it was a concentrated. They also gave them broccoli powder. Let me see. I've lost it. We'll post it up. Yes, it reduced symptoms of fibromyalgia by about 20% in the patients. And when they went off the ascorbigen, the symptoms came back. So this wasn't a double-blind study, but the authors said, you know, this is an interesting thing. There should be a double-blind study looking into this. So I'm not sure if you would get ascorbigen from the sauerkraut because it's broken down. I think you would. I think, you know, there'd still be some ascorbigen in the sauerkraut. So maybe good for fibromyalgia. Because it's something you can take every day. You know, you might not want to take cabbage every day, but sauerkraut, you just take it. You know, just take a little tablespoonful. You know, on the side of your plate. That's the way to eat sauerkraut. Yeah. So I think that just about wraps up this section, the introduction. You know, the medical benefits, possible adverse effects of sauerkraut. All the fantastic effects of sauerkraut. Take it every day, really. And in the next section, we'll talk about the process of making sauerkraut, yeah? And then we will finally get to making it, okay? So, going to be a long old video or series of videos again. Sauerkraut could save your life, and I'm going to show you how. We've already looked at the myriad medicinal effects of sauerkraut. Here is one more, related to the fibre, cabbage fibre in sauerkraut, to the prebiotic, yeah? And we're going to look at two things, c. difficile and stomach ulcer. Not in that order, stomach ulcer and c. difficile. We'll look at those. And they're related because the treatment for the standard treatment for stomach ulcer, otherwise known as peptic ulcer, gastric ulcer, duodenal ulcer. These are all stomach ulcer. Duodenal ulcer is just beyond the stomach, so slightly different, but they're all stomach ulcer. The standard treatment for stomach ulcer can cause C. difficile, and we'll have a look at that in a minute. Now, the thing is, antibiotics no longer work. If they ever did. I'm a skeptic about orthodox medicine, okay? So I don't really believe in anything in it. I mean, there might be, you make your own decisions, but I try and stay away from doctors as much as possible. In fact, I do manage to stay away from them. But anyway, antibiotics are not working. The bugs have become resistant. And now this is interesting. It was thought that the bugs became resistant by mutation, yeah? That by classic Darwinian evolution, they evolved resistance to the antibiotics. Okay, now we know, I mean, in the last 10 years, huge advances in technology to look at bugs. 10 years ago, it was thought that there were 400, you know, in the human flora, there were about 400 bacteria. Now it's known that there are 2,000. So, yeah, they actually, it's been discovered that they are actually, there's a lateral resistance. They can swap, the bacteria can actually swap resistance. So, you know, one bacteria has developed resistance, it can give that to another species of bacteria. So, mind-blowing, really. So, yeah, the antibiotics are no longer working, and the more we use them, the less they work, okay? So, you know, I mean, what has medicine got to offer? You know, that was the thing that made medicine from the 30s up to the 30s. Really didn't have much, yeah. But the era of antibiotics is over. And it causes more and more problems. Antibiotic use. It's not just the fact that it's giving bugs resistance. It kills the flora, kills kills all the bacteria, and yeah, then you get dysbiosis. You get all kinds of diseases caused by antibiotic use. Plus the side effects. I mean, I have hearing problems, but not caused by antibiotics because I've never taken them. But you know, that's one of the dark secrets of antibiotics. They can, you know, can affect your hearing. They can do that, you know, permanently. So, yeah. So we need to look at plants. Plants. Humans have been using plants have got their own immune systems, which are just as sophisticated and effective as our own immune systems. And we can use the things that plants, you know, those phytochemicals that plants use to kill bugs. We can take those. We can use those to kill our own bugs. And we've been using that plants in that way, you know, since we were cavemen. Cavemen knew about this, and yeah. So cabbage juice. So we looked at cabbage juice to heal gastric ulcer, to heal stomach ulcer. Up here, yeah, earlier in the video. Study in 1949 showed that it healed stomach ulcer in 10 days. Whereas the NHS, the standard treatment with the NHS, they admit on the NHS website, it can take 1 to 2 months, and that's if it works. It might not even work, okay? So, you know, why are they not prescribing cabbage juice? You can buy a cheap Chinese juicer for 25 quid, about $30, I guess. Which will make perfectly good cabbage juice, and that will work. Yeah, better if you can afford a better juicer. Better if you can afford a triturating juicer, and a good one comes in at about 500 quid, about $600. But the cheap juicer will do, you know, will do the job. So, you know, so let's save a few billions. You know, they're talking about spending billions, more billions that we don't have on the NHS. What for? You know, the sicker we get, the more we demand. Oh my God, you know, we're all getting sick. Spend more billions on the NHS. It doesn't work. Eat properly. avoid antibiotics, and eat sauerkraut. Sauerkraut will save your life, and I'm going to show you how now. So stomach ulcer. 50% of the population have H. pylori, which causes stomach ulcer. Now, it was thought that it was clear cut H. pylori. You got H. pylori, you're going to get a stomach ulcer. It's not so clear cut. Not everybody gets with H. pylori will get a stomach ulcer, you know. So, and also it has a protective effect against esophageal cancer. So if you've got H. pylori, you're less likely to get cancer of the esophagus. So, but if you do have H. pylori, you're more likely to get stomach cancer. But anyway, the two treatments. What is the standard treatment for stomach ulcer? Well, according to the NHS, it's PPI, proton pump inhibitor, plus 2 or 3 antibiotics used in combination. Now, there's 2 problems with that, and they can both lead to C. difficile. You know, even if you use one without the other. Proton pump inhibitors stop the stomach producing stomach acid, and stomach acid kills pathogens. So if you're suppressing your stomach acid, pathogens can get through into the rest of your digestive tract. So C. difficile can take up residence in the colon. Okay, number 1. Number 2, same thing with antibiotics. Antibiotics can cause dysbiosis, disturbance of the gut flora, and C. difficile can flourish. So the 2 together, well, I think it's a nightmare. But anyway, so cabbage juice for stomach ulcer, number 1. No side effects, yeah? The only side effect of drinking cabbage juice is cabbage juice contains goitrogens, otherwise known as goitrogens, and I've already talked about this earlier in the video. So if you're taking cabbage juice, you must take Lugol's iodine. Take supplement with Lugol's iodine anyway, 4 or 5 drops a day. So just take your Lugol's iodine and your cabbage juice. If you get stomach ulcer, clear up in 10 days. And that's on PubMed, okay? That's not me saying it, okay? This is not some alternative medicine wacky theory. This has been proved in a proper study, okay? So, what about sauerkraut for stomach ulcer? Well, sauerkraut has got lactic acid bacteria. Now, one of the things they've discovered, this has been known, actually it's been known since 1925, that bacteria make bacteriocins. So they make little peptides that can kill other species, competing species of bacteria, either closely related species or not so closely related species. And since about 2009, it's been known that bacteria talk to each other. So bacteria are really multicellular organisms. It's not just a little isolated organism. They can talk to each other, and there's a thing called quorum sensing, where they can, they can take a vote. They can say, oh, well, look there's not many competing bacteria. There's lots of us. Let's become virulent, yeah? And that's what happens. So is that what's happening with C. difficile? Not known. There's nothing on PubMed about that, but I wonder if that's the case. I wonder if the C. difficile, the problems come because they're virulent. Same thing with H. pylori. And with H. pylori, they have isolated a virulent strain. So again, this virulent strain, has that been caused by antibiotics? Pretty likely, I think. So then the question is, do you have the virulent strain or the not so virulent strain? So how likely are you to get stomach ulcer? Pretty likely. I've forgotten the. We'll put it. I've forgotten the. My mind's gone blank. We'll flash that up. The incidence of stomach ulcer. We'll flash that up in the video. So yeah, we've dealt with that. Sauerkraut, yeah, could be good for stomach ulcer if you take, to avoid stomach ulcer. So if you're eating sauerkraut every day, the lactic acid bacteria. And by the way, this study where they gave sauerkraut to people with irritable. With bowel disease, with Crohn's and colitis, and they showed that pasteurized sauerkraut was just as good as ordinary as live sauerkraut, and they found that they examined the feces, the stool of the subjects of the two groups, and they found that in the people who were eating live sauerkraut, the lactic acid bacteria were present in the stools. So that shows that the lactic acid bacteria are getting through the stomach acid. The stomach acid is not killing it all. So so the lactic acid bacteria must be active in your stomach when you're eating. Yeah. So maybe the sauerkraut might keep H. pylori under control. That's my own theory. Okay, that's not proven. That's C. difficile infection, and 500,000 cases of C. difficile infection per year in the US. So you've got a 1 in 600 chance in the US of getting C. difficile, and that equates to I think it equates to 1 in 60 chance in a lifetime of getting it. It can be very very nasty. It can kill you, yeah, and it's not a very nice way to die. You get fulminating colitis. Okay, so basically you die in a flood of diarrhea. 29,000 deaths per year in the US, according to the Centers for Disease Control. Now, can sauerkraut heal C. difficile? There are no studies on PubMed where it's being tried. Okay, so I'm going out on a limb here. Okay, I think this may work. Cabbage juice has been proved to work for stomach ulcer. Sauerkraut, no studies, not proven to work for C. difficile. But I think it may work, and you may want to try it. It costs nothing to try it. You could still be taking antibiotics, and you could still be eating the sauerkraut. It's not going, there's not going to be some problem with taking antibiotics if you're taking the sauerkraut. So now, why do I think it could work for C. difficile? Well, it can. The fiber in sauerkraut can increase the gut flora, the flora in your colon. So now there are 2 studies which show this almost certainly will work. Okay, 2 studies I'm going to quote that show this will work. Now, cabbage, there's 2% insoluble fiber in cabbage, and that's cellulose. By the way, if you're eating sauerkraut, either in my C. difficile protocol, which is coming up, do not eat avocado pears. Okay, avocado pears are fabulous food. It's a superfood. I eat loads of it, but humans do not have the enzyme to break down cellulose. Cows do. Ruminants have cellulase. Anything which ends in ase is an enzyme. So cows and horses have cellulase which breaks down the cellulose. Humans do not. But in avocado pears there is cellulase. So if you wanted to break down the cellulose, eat avocado pears. But don't eat the avocado pear with your sauerkraut if you want to use it for, to maybe heal C. difficile. And again, I stress, I am not practicing medicine here. Okay, this may help. This is just a suggestion. It may help. Okay, so so the fiber is not digested in your digestive tract. The cellulose goes through your stomach, goes through your intestines. It's not digested until it gets to the colon, and in the colon it is digested. It starts to ferment, and it's very good for the colon health. Fiber, insoluble fiber, cellulose, is marvelous for the colon, and it feeds the bacteria thrive on it. They ferment. It produces short-chain fatty acids, which feed the cells of the colon. Now, in a human experiment, Dr. Cummings, I should give him a name check because he is really the... we should give a name check to Dr. Cummings, who was doctor at Old Aldenbrooks Hospital in Cambridge, and he did a lot of work on fibre in the 1980s, and if you look anything with fibre on PubMed, you'll see loads of articles and studies, very good studies done by him. And one in particular, he gave concentrated fibre, different kinds of concentrated fibre supplemented at 20% in the diet to human subjects, and then he weighed their poo, and the clear winner was cabbage juice. Was cabbage fibre. Carrot fibre was very good as well, but cabbage fibre was the clear winner. And if he gave 20% concentrated fibre in the diet to these human guinea pigs, 20% cabbage fibre, the stool, there was a 69% increase in stool weight. Now, what was causing that? So he looked at, was it caused by more water in the stool? Yeah, was the fibre taking up water? So he looked at that, and the fibres in vitro, the fibres which took up water performed the least well, in terms of increasing weight. So obviously nothing to do with water uptake. So the only thing that can be, the increase in weight could be, is bacteria. Now, in the normal human stool, according to which author you believe, there's between 40 and 60% is bacteria. So that's pretty clear cut that the increase in weight was due to bacteria. Okay. Now we'll come to a study on mice here. And in this study, there were two groups of mice. One group of mice was given concentrated fibre at 2% in their diet, supplemented with 2% concentrated fibre. The other group of mice was given 20% concentrated fibre, and they were infected with C. difficile. Okay, so the mice with 2% fibre continued to excrete C. difficile, so no effect there. The mice which were given 20% fibre, after 6 out of 7 of the mice, after 7 days, they were no longer excreting the C. difficile. So then the mice were euthanized and dissected, and they found in the mice, the 20% group, there were more bacteria in the colon and more species of bacteria. Okay, so that, I think that's pretty conclusive. I'm not, as I said, I'm not prescribing medicine here. I'm just saying it may, maybe, if you've got C. difficile, it may be worth a try. You might have to, you might be taking the antibiotics to be on the safe side, but I think, definitely have, you should be eating sauerkraut every day anyway. If you're eating sauerkraut every day, I doubt whether you'd get it. And if you have, if you don't take my advice for the cabbage juice for stomach ulcer, and you're treated for stomach ulcer with the standard treatment, eat sauerkraut, just as a preventive measure. And again, I'm not prescribing medicine, this just may work, So the fibre in the sauerkraut is a prebiotic, and we saw in this study where they gave it to patients with bowel disease, with Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. No, it was just ordinary colitis, sorry, just Crohn's disease and colitis. We'll flash the study up. They gave, they were divided into two groups. One group had pasteurized sauerkraut, the other group had live sauerkraut. There was no difference in outcome. They both improved. We talked about this earlier in the video, yeah. Both improved, and the group that were given the live sauerkraut had lactic acid bacteria in their poop. So, you know, that shows that it goes through the whole, the lactic acid bacteria goes through the whole digestive tract. So, so the sauerkraut is acting. In that case, the successful outcome, you know, where the patients improved, was attributed to the prebiotic effect of the fibre in the sauerkraut. But there's also the probiotic effect, yeah. So this might be in the case of C. difficile, the lactic acid bacteria. The lactic acid bacteria are called what's called facultative anaerobes, which means they thrive in either aerobic or anaerobic conditions. So they thrive in the whole digestive tract. In the stomach, they survive, you know, and they might be controlling the H. pylori. In the colon, you know, you know, there are no studies where sauerkraut's been used for C. difficile, and I think there should be. But in the colon, the lactic acid bacteria, they could be, you know, could control maybe the C. difficile. So then it would be a prebiotic and a probiotic effect, symbiotic, yeah, symbiotic. So. Yeah, sauerkraut could save your life, could save you dying from C. difficile, from fulminant colitis. Now, what else? Yeah, other plants which might work. Olive leaf extract. No studies. I could find no studies against olive leaf extract against C. difficile, but olive leaf extract is a broad spectrum antibiotic, natural antibiotic, and that's not going to lead to bacteria getting resistance, yeah. But it might just work. No harm in trying. Okay, there's no proof that it would work against C. difficile, but it might. Worth trying. There was a study where they tried various natural plants against C. difficile. Olive leaf extract wasn't included. But there were things like ginger, garlic juice. Garlic juice worked the best, but then, you know, is garlic juice going to reach the colon? You know, this was an in vitro experiment, so I think it would be worth taking extra garlic if you've got C. difficile, and you know, if you've got a stomach ulcer, take garlic, you know, just as a preventative measure. So. Yeah, I think that just about wraps it up. So, yeah, look at my playlist. There are 2 other videos on bacteria. The gut flora can change very fast. There was a study where they gave people who ate mainly vegetarian diets, gave them mainly meat-based diet, and vice versa. And yeah, they looked at their poop and found that the flora changed very quickly. Okay, we'll post that up. Now, for the C. difficile, it's only going to work if you have a lot of fibre. Yeah, 20% fibre is an awful lot. In cabbage, the fibre is 2%. Most of it, about 92% of cabbage, is water, and 2% is fibre. So you would have, you know, to get 20% of fibre supplementing in your normal diet, you would have to eat a huge bowl of sauerkraut, you know, a huge bowl like this. But I think it's doable. Another thing you can do is to make potato juice. Resistant starch is also, you know, it's like cellulose. It's also very good for the colon. So raw potato juice, yeah. And another thing you could do is take inulin. You can get it at your health food store. Same thing, it's for the colon. You know, maybe take a tablespoonful of inulin in a bit of water twice a day, something like that. So, yeah, so you're going to have to, and another thing, yeah, eat mainly, you know, I mean, I think you would need to eat sauerkraut for breakfast, sauerkraut for lunch, sauerkraut for dinner, yeah. It should work in about a week, you know, if this well, there was this study on mice. Mice aren't, it's not the same thing as humans, but I think it would work pretty quickly. Maybe in a week you should start to see benefits straight away. So have a very light diet, I would say. Eat some rice. Look at my video for the healthiest lunch ever. That's a great way to eat, with the protocol. And also ginger would have an effect on C. difficile. It has an effect. And honey for any diarrhea. Remember, we looked in my healthiest breakfast ever, we looked at honey. Marvelous effect. Honey and ginger together, great effect on pathogens. Also, take some olive leaf extract. I couldn't find anything on PubMed about olive leaf extract killing C. difficile, but I could find a study where it killed a definite in vitro, very strong in vitro effect on 3 different pathogens. My mind's gone blank again. We'll flash it up, yeah. So, I would take some olive leaf extract as well, say 2 or 3 per day, there's no side effects with olive leaf extract, absolutely no side effects. Only good things from olive leaf extract. It's a broad spectrum antibiotic, and it does lots of great things for your health as well. Okay, so I think that's about it. So we'll flash that, we'll put that protocol up and leave it for a few minutes, yeah? Okay.